I've pressed go live. It's
Oh, it says
preparing
now
for
it's
live
streaming
stream.
live. Yeah. You're good.
Okay. So welcome everyone to the Black Kids White Coats YouTube channel. For those of you that are newly tuning in, my name is Adama. I am a first-year intern at a family medicine program in Southern California. And joining me are my two co-hosts, Nelson.
Billy, you got it. Oh, ladies first.
Oh,
I am just making sure everything is working, but I'm Lillian. Hey guys, I'm Lillian, one of the co-hosts, Rising M4.
She's busy, so she'll dip out soon, but I'm Nelson, fellow co-host. I'm in Chicago, fourth year student, matching into radiology at Vanderbilt.
and so ignoring Lillian, pretend like she's not here. She's just here for support. But for those of you that are just tuning in, welcome. This is our match series. So for this series, we are having brilliant rising fourth year medical students now matched into programs, having them talk a little bit about their journeys, tips, tricks, advice that they use that they found helpful. And so today our series is on obstetrics and gynecology, OBGYN. So we have two brilliant minds joining us. First, we have Stephanie. She goes to Rutgers, New Jersey Medical School, and she is going to Beth Israel Deaconess at Harvard for her OBGYN residency. Next, we have Nina. She is from the University of Massachusetts Medical School, and she is going to NYU for her OBGYN residency. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for spending your Tuesday afternoon with us. So we're just going to jump right in. Can you tell me a little bit about, your upbringing and what brought you into medicine?
Sure. So I can go first. So like she said, my name is Nina. I grew up in a pretty small town about an hour south of Boston, known as Mansfield. And I went to undergrad at Boston University, where I studied human physiology. And then I actually completed in a fifth year my master's in public health, in maternal and child health. And I've always known I wanted to go into medicine, probably since I was like 6 or 7 years old. My family is from Haiti. My parents are immigrants. And my grandmother and her 9 children immigrated here many, many years ago. And I grew up going to doctor's appointments at the Safety Net Hospital in Boston with my grandmother and translating for her Haitian Creole to English. And I think it was a multiple different reasons why I ultimately decided to become a doctor. But I'd say primarily some of the negative interactions I saw between the primary care physicians and specialists dealing with my grandmother, who was a non-English speaker immigrant and who had very limited resources. And so that was kind of the driving force. I wanted to be in some type of primary care field where I could be addressing social determinants of health and kind of looking at all of my patients more holistically. And so OBGYN we can get into that later, but OBGYN kind of combines my interests in public health and primary care. And yeah, so.
Awesome.
Okay. Well, for me, I'm from New Jersey. I'm from a small suburb about 15 minutes out of Newark, where I'm now at for medical school. I am the first in my family to go to college, and I am the first in my family to go to medical school. So initially I wanted to go to medical school wanted to tackle on psychiatry. I in high school, I noticed, within my family, that mental health wasn't really addressed. And I noticed that as a very prevalent thing in the Black community in general. And so for me as a senior in high school, I thought that was very interesting and something that I wanted to, incorporate into my career, which drove me to go to college and become a pre-med and biology major. So I went to Rutgers University in Brunswick for undergrad, and then I went to Rutgers New Jersey Medical School for medical school. When I started my third year clerkships, I realized psych was not for me, and that my talents were best suited elsewhere. And that's how I ended up in OBGYN. We're similar to Nina, where, I realized that I could, fight the battle against social determinants of health while also, incorporating advocacy for my patients. Black maternal mortality is a very, hot topic right now for me. I would love to delve into that, and I hope to, fight that battle when the time comes, when I'm a resident and as an attending.
Okay. So can you ladies tell me specifically, especially you, Stephanie, because you made that switch, what drew you to OBGYN? What about it?
So yeah, when I started my third year, I chose OB as my first clerkship because I thought I wasn't gonna like it. I thought I was gonna hate it. I thought it wasn't for me. But I ended up loving it. Like, what really attracted it to me was, the versatility of the day to day. You have labor and delivery where you are delivering babies, you're managing obstetric patients. You also have clinic, which could be loads of number of topics such as your general pap smears, STD testing, family planning. And then you have gynecology, which is surgery. You get to, work with your hands. And for me, those three main building blocks of OBGYN is what, I felt like I was never going to be bored in the field. Like, and that's how I felt during my third year clerkship. And then, some of the finer details of it was, I saw a lot of my personality in the residents and the attendings when I was on the floors. Like, I'm very, empathetic. I'm also, I'm very honest. I'm very straightforward. I like to get things done, at as least risk to the patients and as fast as I can. And then lastly, incorporating that advocacy component to it. When I was a third year, I would see a lot of, racism and discrimination towards Black patients on the floors from nurses, and for me, like as a medical student, it was frustrating not to be able to do anything at that point, but to see the residents and the attendings that were able to stand up for those patients, that made me say, this is the perfect field for me, where it incorporated all these things that I loved.
So for me personally, a lot of what I'm going to say probably will echo what Stephanie has already said, but I'd say primarily, I really love the idea of being what is essentially a primary care provider for women. You as an OBGYN in clinic specifically, you're privy to so much personal information, and you're allowed to have these really intimate conversations with your patients, whether it's a seemingly embarrassing GYN issue, whether the patient's telling you about an issue of domestic violence in the home, or whether it's just for a wellness check. I really liked how you're able to kind of take time and connect with your patients, and with trust, you're able to learn a lot about your patients in order to treat them in the most effective manner. I would also agree that I think a lot of for the same reason that a lot of people go into OBGYN, I really liked the variety in the OR, in labor and delivery, and in clinic, as I'd already mentioned. I think I consider myself a very technical, hands-on person. So I can see myself being a surgeon and kind of going the generalist route without subspecializing, choosing like OB or GYN one way or the other. And I think that I'd already kind of echoed or touched on this before, that I think in OBGYN, arguably, it's the one specialty where you're able to do some of the most advocacy in public health work, especially as it relates to reproductive rights in our current political climate and our current president. So for kind of all of those reasons, OBGYN has pretty much always been the perfect fit for me.
And then throughout this journey, were there any challenges that you ladies faced along the way?
Oh, definitely. I struggled throughout medical school, to be honest. Like, I thought first year was brutal. Like, it took me a long time to get adjusted to learning the systems. Like, prior to medical school, I had no formal knowledge of, anatomy or anything of that nature. So for me, when I started my anatomy section of, the blocks, the system blocks, I kind of crashed and burned, to be honest. And it took me a while to, gain my bearings and, gain my confidence back, by the time I started second year. And then second year, the most important part of that is step one. And that was another hurdle for me. I studied very hard. I took practice tests, and when it came down to it, when I got my results back, my step scores were below average, for both step one and for step two. I have some type of test taking anxiety, which I haven't figured out how to deal with as of yet. However, it manifests in both my step one and my step two scores. Thank God I passed CS, because that was annoying. In addition, so for me, like, those were my my obstacles that I had to face, and I had to be very upfront about them going into applying for residency.
So kind of in contrast to Stephanie, I'd say that my first year of medical school was a lot less of a steep learning curve. In undergrad, my pre-medical program was pretty rigorous, so I was able to take cardiopulmonary physiology and like gross anatomy with a cadaver and all those things. So I was pretty okay academically first year, but similar to Stephanie, when it came time for step one, I found that to be the whole study process, really the 4 months leading up to the exam, to be a very like physically and emotionally isolating time. Just pulling those like 12 to 14-hour days in the library from 7 a.m. to 8 or 9 p.m. And not necessarily getting an opportunity to connect with my support system. Like, I'm very close with my family. I'm very close with my close friends from childhood and from undergrad, etc. So that kind of isolation was very bad for me. And I had never really experienced like anxiety before, but I remember probably the 4 weeks leading up to the exam, I was regularly seeing one of the counselors from student counseling, and it was kind of I actually went to the student health clinic once because I was having trouble swallowing, and in retrospect, it was definitely anxiety. So that was a really difficult time for me in med school, I would say, for sure.
Wow, thank you both for sharing that. I know it's tough, but we can see right now in the chat, some folks are kind of sharing and some of the experiences y'all have, and they're glad that you're where you are, you've matched, but you kind of had those challenges you overcame. So thanks for the candor, and thanks for kind of being so open with that, for sure.
Yeah, to hear this, like, like Nina, I also struggled with anxiety and depression, around that step one studying time. And this was the first time in my life that I ever experienced any type of mental health issues. So I had no idea what was going on. So I was just like Nina said, it was very confusing. At the same time, you're supposed to be studying for this major exam, and it was just, a very, very tough time.
I actually have to do a quick shout out to the people at the UMass Med Student Counseling Services too, because they really got me through it. And I didn't mention this, but eventually, like, I didn't do like stellar, like super above average, but I was definitely, and I had like a little above average step score, and it didn't shut any doors for me later on during my residency application.
She was comfortable. She was comfortable.
I was not.
Touching on step one, as we all know, with COVID-19, coronavirus, a lot of prometric centers, all of them are shut down probably for the indefinite future. Do you have any advice for someone who was probably gearing up to take it and then suddenly is kind of like, I don't know what's going on, or someone who may be on the burnt out side, as I know we probably all faced at one point during the step one studying session? So any advice or tips that you use that you think would be helpful?
Well, I would say if you're anything like me, I'm very hard on myself and I don't like to give myself breaks. But after taking step one and just the whole entire experience of medical school, you have to give yourself a break, whether that break is 1 week or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, like 1 month. You need to give yourself kind of like time to refresh, and you'll probably be a lot more effective if you give yourself and your brain that rest. So then you can come back with kind kind of a refreshed perspective, I guess, on the study situation. I mean, I don't even know what I would do, honestly, in the circumstances right now. Probably just a little each day. Like, it can be really tempting to try to, like, okay, I'm gonna put in like 4 hours of studying today, but you've studied for 4 hours and you're staring at a text, you're staring at first aid for 4 hours, but how much have you really absorbed? So in that kind of case, I probably would just be like, okay, I'm gonna do 30 minutes of this. Like, I'm gonna learn this very small topic. I'm not going to learn all of renal physiology, but I'm just going to, one day, let's say I'll like study the parts of the nephron, and then the next day, you know, take it like kind of step by step, because you don't really know when the test is going to be. There's definitely a point of diminishing returns where the studying you do is not going to be helpful. So, I mean, just a little bit each day is kind of enough to keep you in the groove, but also not get you burnt out when you're not quite sure when your test day is going to be.
Yeah, I totally agree with all those points that Nina just said. So for me, I guess I would suggest like just breathe. You know, I think it's a stressful time for all of us. You know, I think it's particularly stressful for you guys who studying for your step 1 or your step 2 or any type of board examination. You know, something that I had to keep reminding myself when I was studying for step 1 was it's okay to take time off and to not study. Like, it's okay to do things that you want to do and have some fun. Or, you know, I know in the state it's hard. You can't go out and do the things you like to do, like get your nails done or go to the movies or whatever. But try to, you know, try to figure out something else that you can do. Like, you know, maybe have like, you know, online movie night with your friends, or, you know, have a, you know, you drink, have a glass of wine every here and there. You know, it's okay to not study all day, especially now. And just hang in there. Like, you know, there's beauty in the struggle, for real. Like, you know, you'll get through this. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. And like what Nina said, since it's kind of indeterminate when you're gonna take it, just study little by little every day.
It was crazy. I couldn't get my nails done either. It's crazy.
Man, you know the way this unibrow is set up.
I feel you.
It'd be like that sometimes, man. Just
My
rock it.
nails, I
It'll
mean,
pay off.
I hope so, because looking raggedy in these streets. I don't have the excuse of being quarantined at home. I gotta go to work. So people.
Today was the first day I put on a real shirt. Like,
I said, is it bad if I just put on a scrub top? But I was like, I can't do that. That's disrespectful.
Just throw on the top. The bottom can be whatever. Throw on the top. You know,
got the top, that sweatshirt. We trying.
Yeah.
Okay. So ladies, for you, I know OBGYN is increasingly getting more and more competitive as the years go on. Do you have any advice for someone who really wants to go into OBGYN, know that this is it for them, there's no other specialty, and they may not have the scores or maybe lacking in research if they want to go to a research heavy program? Do you have any advice for those type of applicants?
Yeah. So like I said, both my step 1 and my step 2 are below average for the national average. So for me, I think, and for any applicants who are in the same situation as myself, I think my best advice is to know yourself and know yourself well, you know, because your application has to be on point, you know, every aspect of it, you know. So you have to, you know, shine somewhere else, whether it's your personal statement. You know, I spent so much time on my personal statement, you know, making it absolutely perfect, making it absolutely riveting and it's attention like grabbing, you know. And it was something that every one of my interviews, program directors, you know, told me they loved it. You know, a couple program directors told me they cried while reading it. You know, it was something that I put a lot of work into because I knew I had to get their attention some way, because it wasn't my board scores that were going to do it. And particularly your extracurriculars, you know, those are something that, you know, you have to shine into, have a lot of leadership position, and don't be scared to be passionate about something that's not necessarily OBGYN focused. My application is very diversity focused. I was president of SNMA at my school. I worked in admissions, trying to recruit more underrepresented in medicine students into my medical school. So that was an aspect of my application that was something I was very passionate about and somewhat unique. And I you know, let that be a part of my story, that I kind of wanted to let it shine about me. In addition, interviews. If you know you're struggling with interviewing, do a lot of mock interviews. I did too myself because I feel kind of confident on my people skills and my talking and my speaking skills. So I still did too, just to be sure that I was on point and that it wasn't in my head and that I was getting some type of feedback from somebody else. And lastly, just believe in yourself. You have to be confident, because if you don't believe in yourself, then no one else is going to believe in you. Therefore, don't be scared to apply to a couple of reaches or schools that you don't think you can get into. I was told that, Deaconess was a reach for me when I was initially applying, and here I am today. So I would say, like, definitely make a well-balanced list. I'm not telling you apply to all the Ivies, but definitely be realistic about, what are the majority of type of programs you should be applying to, but at the same time, put your dream program on there. You never know what they're looking for.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with everything you just said. I just want to echo one point. I think that a lot of people, at least at my home program, they kind of downplay the importance of the personal statement. I think the personal statement can do a lot of heavy lifting for applicants who have suboptimal or less than average step 1 or step 2 scores. It's really a chance for you to get obviously really personal. It's a personal statement, but also kind of grab the reader's attention when they're kind of lukewarm on you, like, well, her scores are on her or his scores are on like kind of the borderline and they don't have that much research. Like, if you just get one of the reviewers to even be like, no, this person's interesting enough just from that statement for us to bring them in and just kind of want to hear more, that is huge. Similar to Stephanie, I went on 20 interviews. I think maybe at 17 of them, at least someone commented on my personal statement. They were like, wow, like this was phenomenal. And so I wouldn't necessarily listen to advice where people are like, it's not like med school, like it doesn't have to be phenomenal, your statement, like as long as it's not in like the bad pile or like where the grammar is awful and like clearly they didn't put any effort in. But I would say that it really does count. So I would not discredit the personal statement at all. And I would also I would be meticulous about the entire application in general. I probably read my application 10 times. I printed it out every time and went through with a multicolored pen and was like, that line sounds weird the way I described this program. And also, I would also say when you're describing your activities, like, obviously you don't want to pad your application, but if you put in any kind of real effort into the activity, I would describe in detail like what you did, what the program is, what the activity was about. Because I did see some examples of other applications where it wasn't super detailed or they kind of were downplaying their involvement as a leader. And I think all those little things can really help. So I would also have someone not in medicine review your application, whether that's a parent or a mentor, and then someone in medicine review your application just to make sure. And then I would also say network. If your scores are not good or you don't have the research to be applying to some of these top tier programs, but you'd still like to submit an application there, just let everyone in your corner know that this is my goal. Like, I'm going to go to X program, which is a top 10 program. Like, you let everyone know, and inevitably someone will know someone who can connect you, and you can cold email them, do whatever you need to do. I'm a huge advocate for that, advocating for yourself. But people need to know what your goals are in order to help you.
Awesome. Real quick, a couple of things. So when did y'all start writing your personal statement? I know it was a long time ago, so if you can think back to like around when. And second thing, speaking of networking, can you name some programs, some organizations that people watching can kind of reach out to? If you can, maybe just how y'all did it.
So I started writing my personal statement probably, I would say, at the beginning of July, because I had a week break before I started one of my away rotations at Stephanie's program. And
this is your third year.
during my, this is the beginning of my 4th year. So at University of Massachusetts Medical School, we end 3rd year in, I want to say early April, I think. And so I took the month of May to study for step 2. And then I began all my 4 sub-Is for the rest of the summer. So at the beginning of July, I started writing, but I would say it's really difficult to realistically get motivated and start like writing a real statement. I'd say I got really going in August, and like perfected it by like first week of September, like a week before the application was due. And I mean, for me, that's just for me personally. I need time to develop my thoughts, and like I know what sounds good and what doesn't sound good, but it takes me a while to kind of get there. That's just my process. So I kind of like need a little bit of pressure at the end. And then in terms of networking programs, I am a huge fan of the Harvard visiting clerkship program. So it's basically a program through Harvard where their whole, it's like a pipeline program. They're trying to increase their number of underrepresented applicants in medicine to their residency programs. For specifically OBGYN, that would be Harvard, Beth Israel Deaconess, and then the Brigham and Women's / MGH combined residency programs. So they also had, I'm forgetting the name of it. They had a networking day for all specialties, radiology, OB, anesthesia, etc., where you could meet the program directors, and it was specifically for URIM applicants. And this year it was the night before the application was due, before ERAS was due. So I talked to the program directors from both Harvard programs, and that was a great opportunity as well. And I think getting connected, I'll find the name, I can look it up maybe in a second, but that's a great program if you're interested in the Boston area or Harvard.
What Nina said about the personal statement was spot on with me as well. I need time to develop my ideas and weave my thoughts together. So I didn't start until the beginning of August of my 4th year, and I don't think I really finished it until maybe the first week of September, maybe like second week of September, right before it was due. But at that point it was just a little changes here and there, nothing major. In terms of the networking, so for me personally, I tried to go to different conferences, not necessarily related to OBGYN. So around last April, I presented on a topic that was really important to me, the lack of Black men in medicine at the Northeast Regional Student Affairs Conference. It was actually held at Harvard, and that was a great networking opportunity in itself, because all of the a lot of the Boston programs had their program directors there, because it was really a student affairs type conference where a lot of student affairs deans were there, program directors were there, deans of admissions were there for other schools. So it was a great networking opportunities for medical students and people going into residency. In addition, I would also just talk to my mentors, try to see who can get me connected to who. I would, my one mentor put me in contact with somebody at Sinai. A person at Sinai put me in connection with a bunch of other people in the New York City areas. So it's all about, putting yourself out there and trying to, get your foot into that door and in any way possible. You got to take yourself out of your comfort zone for this. And, it may be awkward trying to reach out and, because you obviously want something from these people, but and it's just looking like you're there, like, just trying to, get something out of them. But it's like you need to do something. They understand, because, if you need to, open these doors, you have to do it somehow. So I would just say try to look at your own network and try to reach out from there, because you'll realize, or you won't realize, that a lot of the faculty that know people elsewhere, and they know those people know people elsewhere. So it's like, just try to get in your foot in the door however way you can.
I just have 2 more additional comments. So I think what you said is really important, that this kind of like networking is really, it can be uncomfortable. I would consider myself on the quieter side, at least around people that I'm not super familiar with. So some of this can be painfully awkward for me, but I still do it anyways, because I know what my goal is. And oftentimes after the fact, if, I become friends with the person who kind of, connected me to someone, they'd be like, oh, I didn't even know you were feeling shy or feeling uncomfortable. Like, so just fake it till you make it, honestly. The second thing is I looked up what the name of that program is. So it's through Harvard Medical School's Office for Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Partnership. It's a really great program. And the program that happens every September around the time that ERAS is due is called the Harvard Affiliated Residency Programs Showcase. And it's for 3rd and 4th year medical students from groups underrepresented in medicine. And this year it's on September 12th, 2020 at Harvard Medical School.
Man, dropping gems. I'm taking notes like,
Right.
okay, for fellowship when I networking. Uh, so speaking of networking and mentorship, do you guys have any advice for someone who's trying to look for mentors, or how did you ladies stumble upon your mentors?
So I would say that I used to think in undergrad that a mentor was this really super formal entity or person in your life. But in my opinion, a mentor is really just an individual who sees potential in you and wants to help you grow and cultivate your personal and professional skills and reach your own personal and professional goals. So, I mean, you can find a mentor anywhere. I've had a lot of different mentors for a lot of different things, for medicine in general, for OBGYN specifically, for just navigating life as a young adult Black female. I would say one of my mentors, I met her as the student leader of the OBGYN interest group. We led a panel for just about the specialty, what kind of research opportunities were happening at UMass, et cetera, et cetera. And she seemed like a very friendly person. And she also served as what we have at UMass, like a house mentor. We're split up into 4 houses amongst our class. And so I just kind of cold emailed her and was like, hey, my name is Nina. I heard you speak, or I invited you to speak at the panel, and I'm really interested in seeing more about what you do, because she was a gynecologic oncologist. So this is like first year, she let me shadow her in clinic, and then I've kind of always maintained a relationship with her that way. I don't think it has to be super formal. It's just kind of you making the effort to keep reaching out and keep asking questions. As time goes on, you have more specific questions related to the career or other things. But I think it's a lot about the effort that you put and energy that you put into the relationship, because any of those professional connections can kind of just die off without, I guess.
Nurturing, right?
Yeah. And then I'd say my other mentors have been more formal. So at UMass, my house mentor, who teaches my physical diagnosis class, I love her. She's a rheumatologist, which has nothing to do with OBGYN. She was assigned to me, but I also just happened to really vibe with her. And she's a really sweet person. And she's married to an OBGYN, a maternal fetal medicine specialist. And if she doesn't have answers to some of the questions I have, she'll outsource to some of her other colleagues. And then just mentors from like research programs I did in high school or in early undergrad. So you can find mentors anywhere. It's even if they may not consider themselves a mentor to you, they could be a mentor to you.
Oh, and then real quick, just in case some of you don't know what some of those terms mean. So maternal fetal medicine, that is a specialist that deals with, or OBGYN specialist that deals with high risk pregnancies, such as, multiples, like twins, triplets, quads, or like high risk, like diabetic patients or preeclamptic, meaning another type of blood pressure, just for simplicity's sake. And then gynecologic oncologist is also a subspecialty of OBGYN that deals with more of like the cancer gynecologic, like ovarian, cervical, uterine cancer, things of that nature. Just for those of you that didn't know what that meant. Sorry, Stephanie.
So good. Thank you for that. It's hard. It's easy to just talk in this jargon because we're all, in medical.
We all know.
We forget who our audience is sometimes. So mentors, yeah. So for me, my I have a lot of informal mentors. I think I have more of those than formal mentors. So to be right off the bat, going when I interviewed for my spot at New Jersey Medical School, I realized I connected really well with my interviewer, who is a Black woman. She's a PhD doing cardiology research at my school.
Wow.
In addition, I also connected with the assistant dean of admissions, who's a Cuban woman who is, all about diversity and, helping students of color. So coming in, I knew I wanted those two people to be on my team, on my side. So pretty much, I kind of just kept annoying both of them, to be honest. I wanted them to, remember me and to wanted them to, get the picture that, I want you guys to help me. And it worked. Dr. Blackwell and Dr. Gina Vero are two of my biggest supporters, at NJMS. And, they're the people that I go to for all the life issues that I'm having, all the school issues that I'm having. And with that being said, they also put me, in contact with some of my more specific mentors. So I think Nina mentioned it very well, where you should have mentors for all different aspects of your life, whether it's life in general, whether it's, how to do well in medical school or how to get into the profession you want to go into. So for us, OBGYN, Gina Vera was a great person for that because she works in admissions. She knows a lot of faculty here. So just by being in her presence, I was able to meet a lot of other OBGYNs. And that kind of got me the confidence to, reach out to other people that I was interested in working with. So if there was, for instance, I did a 3rd-year elective with a family planning specialist in OBGYN, and that's somebody who, works with, contraception, birth control counseling. They tend to do abortions and they work in that subject area. So after working with her for 2 weeks, kind of like a couple weeks later, during the elective, I loved working with her. Like she was super dope, like down to earth, somebody that I knew I could relate to and, get a lot of help from. And she was also an alumni from my school. So a couple weeks later, I reached out to her just via email. I was like, hey, can I come meet with you and talk to you about some things? And right then and there was just the start of our, relationship in terms of mentoring. So once again, putting it back out there, gotta be okay with getting out of your comfort zone and, doing things that you're not used to doing to get to the point where you want to be. And our school also has the formal mentoring with our house mentors as well. Mine was an interventional radiologist who I loved her to death, and she was great for just general career advising prior to both during my clinical years and my preclinical years, as well as she was one of the first people to read my personal statement and give me feedback on that, and just rip it apart and then write, help me write a new one. And she was just there, she was just dope. Like I love her just as much as I love any of my other mentors. But I think, if I had to give one advice about mentors, it's just, you got to have a bunch of them. You don't need to just have one, because when I was, in undergrad, I thought, just have one mentor and that's just it. Like I didn't really have any mentors in undergrad. So that's why, when it came to medical school, I had to have a whole different mindset. And then I realized you need to have multiple mentors if you really want to thrive. And so that's my parting words to you on mentors.
Well, one takeaway from this is that representation matters, right? So both of y'all had mentors who were, Black people, high achieving, like very, on it. And, you guys in a way are those people too. The people watching this, you're representing and showing that it can be done. So kudos to y'all. And I just want to point out that representation is so important.
Thank you.
Black girl magic.
Right?
Black girl magic.
And boys too.
Black people magic. Ladies, for aspiring OBGYNs, especially those going into like end of 3rd year, beginning like the sub-I away rotations, which is basically like a month or 2 long interview where you work for a potential hospital that you would hope to be a resident at. Do you have any resources that you found most helpful?
Yeah. So I don't know if you're a member of SNMA, they send out emails all, like every week, and within those emails, if you look through it, they always mention, you know, visiting clerkships for minority students. So be on the lookouts for those. I know a lot of the deadlines for those might have passed already, but you just never know. So I think just starting with SNMA is a great resource within itself. You know, and just in addition is, I think another great resource is talking to, if you still are in contact, talking to current fourth years now, you know, especially if you have any fourth years of color, they'll be able to definitely put you into contact with, point you in the right way to go. You know, as a third year student, you know, one of my mentors was a Black fourth year OBGYN who's currently at Montefiore. And she did it in a way at Sinai, and she said, I did it, you know, do via this minority visiting clerkship thing. And so, you know, she told me about it, you know, and I applied, and I didn't get it, which was okay, but it was still something that I went for, and that I still tell, you know, my mentees now. I was like, I think this is a great opportunity. You get a stipend, and it's in a way, and it's a way to, you know, impress programs who might not have looked at you initially. Another resource is, for me, I found a lot of, like, you know, there's a lot of groups on like Facebook and GroupMe's, like there's YBAD, Young Black African Doctors. So if you're not a member of that, I would definitely recommend joining that, because there's always great resources being thrown around there. You know, that's how I found out about this, you know, this YouTube streaming that we're doing right now. So I would definitely say try to join that. You know, from there, you know, I found a GroupMe that was for OBGYN applicants, you know, Black OBGYN applicants. And, you know, in there they put in resources. So that was ways that I found about applying for ways, even though I didn't do any, just because I was kind of lazy and I wanted to just do stuff at my school. I would still recommend doing them especially if you have lower scores. Like, I think that's a way for you to shine before your application gets sent out.
So for me at UMass, I definitely used my peers more so as a resource. So every year, applicants who have completed the interview process kind of have a 2-hour session one evening for those who are rising fourth years, talking about everything from how to write a personal statement to preparing your ERAS application to away rotations and sub-Is and things like that. And so for us, they honestly prepare us so well for going out into another institution. So it wasn't like a huge like learning curve in terms of preparing for my sub-Is, because I did 2 away rotations and 2 at home. I would say, I mean, if you don't have that kind of resource, in terms of thinking about how to perform in an audition rotation, it's the really simple things: being nice to and polite to absolutely everyone, showing up early, even if you're told, okay, show up at 7 a.m., show up at 6:30 then. Knowing all of your patients, looking in the patient's charts the night before, and the list goes on of like really helpful things. Getting the patient's bed after a surgery, if you're going into a surgical specialty. It's really the small things, and people honestly, if you're able to impress them with your personality and your enthusiasm and charisma, and just like your clinically like really strong skills, that can take you miles. If you're kind of lacking in the academic department, like with scores or lack of research or whatever you feel like your weakness might be in your application. So that's what I would say about like away rotations. I didn't really use, I am a huge fan of Google. So I just Googled underrepresented minority residency, like visiting clerkship. And I came up with a ton of things. I already knew about the Harvard visiting clerkship because I'm from the Boston area. And that was a great opportunity. I lived in Boston for the month of July. I rotated at a Harvard institution, and my housing was paid for completely. So it was at really no expense outside of like groceries and things to me. And that was a great opportunity. My other away rotation, that wasn't like a URIM specific one. I just got that on my own. And that was in like infertility at an institution in Providence, Rhode Island. And I had my July rotation first, and I kind of learned from I didn't necessarily make huge mistakes at my July rotation, but I kind of built off of what I had learned in the first away rotation to kind of keep on improving my performance. Reading up on like just like general concepts, like the menstrual cycle was really helpful for me on my infertility elective. It's really all about being proactive. And if you don't know what to do, it's always okay to ask first day or week, what are your expectations for me? Because as soon as someone tells you their expectations, you're able to exceed them. But if you don't know what the expectations are to begin with, you're not setting yourself up for success, I would say. So yeah, that's what I'd say on away rotations. And yeah.
I mean, both of these women have been extremely successful. I mean, they matched at really good programs, and it goes to show you that there's not one like set in stone path that you have to take to get where you want to be. Whether you do multiple aways or you do home rotations, there's still, you know, whatever's meant for you is meant for you, and you can still be really successful.
So looking at the chat here, there are a few questions. First one, so what are some challenges you all anticipate, you know, in your journey to the field of OB-GYN, and, you know, how are you gonna face them and hopefully crush them?
Well, for me, very like kind of personal challenge. I don't think everyone will go through this, but I tend to be extremely emotional with some of my patient interactions, I would say. In OB, I mean, there are very happy moments, like sharing a family's first moments with their baby after being born and in labor and delivery. But there are also really sad moments where women die in labor or complications happen after a surgery. And I take all those things to heart, for better or for worse. So I think in residency, transitioning from a fourth year medical student to the kind of the first call provider, the first call provider for the patient, and kind of like learning how to like regulate my emotions, and not take everything so personally, and kind of learn how to have compassion without just getting so deep in the situation with the patient. And I think that will be definitely a challenge for me. Other things, I think just residency and starting residency in general, I've been told there's this very steep learning curve, and I mean, it's nerve-wracking, but luckily I'm actually starting residency tomorrow as an intern working in internal medicine because of this COVID-19 crisis. So that will be a nice, I guess, slower transition before starting my OBGYN, my actual residency at NYU. This will just be helping out at my home institution. So I'm hoping that kind of helps me along with those challenges that I anticipate in the future.
Yes.
So similar to Nina, like right off the bat, when I think of residency, I just think of transitioning from a medical student to a resident. You know, I feel like as a medical student, you have so much, you know, you have that badge of being a medical student. While you can't do much, but you know, if you ever feel overwhelmed, you can always be like, oh wait, but I'm just a medical student. You know, as a resident, you can't do that. You know, you can't step away from the situation and be like, oh well, I'm just a medical student, and the resident can do it. You are the resident now. So for me, like that's going to be something where it's going to be like a challenge, you know, and it's a challenge for everybody. But something more personal to me is that, you know, I like to get involved in a lot of things that I'm interested in. And I've gotten better about not overwhelming myself with it, but, you know, within my career, I want to, you know, have specific focuses and things that I, you know, give most of my attention to. So for me, I foresee that as being a challenge, because not only, you know, I will always be a champion for diversity in medicine, but, you know, I also have an interest in transgender care. I also have an interest in maternal mortality. You know, there's a lot of things within OBGYN that I have a specific interest in, and, you know, figuring out which of those things I'm going to focus more on is going to be like a huge, huge challenge for myself.
Sure. So another quick question. I know we're running short on time. Someone has to leave. Stephanie has to leave, but so real quick, let's see here. Let's see. The question is, Sorry, I gotta find it here.
Popular. So many questions.
Yeah, so basically, is there any advice for incoming first year students? Wait, that's the wrong question.
Incoming first year, sleep, rest. Watch Netflix. Watch the last couple episodes of How to Get Away with Murder, 90 Day Fiance. It's not that deep yet.
Well, someone had a question about going back to the personal statement. So sounds like you all kind of redid yours from scratch, but is there any, validity to maybe potentially using your personal statement from, getting into medical school, reusing it and kind of remixing it and going into residency?
I consider that actually, because for both my medical school and my residency personal statement, the theme of it was kind of family, how my family influenced me into, choosing the path that I did. So for medical school, it was like, how did my family influence me going to medical school? And for OBGYN, it was how it influenced me to continue this path in, OBGYN specifically. So I definitely considered that. And I think you can do it if you want to. However, just know that you have to incorporate kind of clinical experiences and experiences specific to OBGYN into your personal statement. So I don't know if your medical school statement was, OBGYN focused. I would still relook at that and maybe take aspects or ideas from that medical school personal statement, but I don't think I personally would reuse the same personal statement that I did going into medical school, because I felt like I had so much growth since then, and I wanted to show that, in my residency personal statement. And because, like I said, it was very important for me. For me, I wanted to outdo my medical school personal statement, because I felt like that one was very strong as well. I still have people, my interviewers and everything from medical school still mention it to me. So I wanted to have that lasting effect, but just again, and more specific to OBGYN. So like I said, I think the best thing, if you do want to use your medical school personal statement, just take ideas from it, see what was so good about it the first time and try to, incorporate that into this personal statement for residency, but not necessarily repeat it. I personally just wouldn't repeat myself again.
Trying to write. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I kind of looked at my personal statement applying to medical school as more of like inspiration for my next statement for applying to residency, because I think my personal statement for medical school was more general, focused on primary care and public health. And my statement for OBGYN residency applications was still definitely, there's a heavy focus on public health and social determinants of health, but it was more so focused on women's health. And like you already said, like Stephanie already said, it definitely incorporated more like concrete clinical experiences that I had with women in the clinical setting. So I probably also wouldn't reuse my statement from medical school, but it was definitely motivation, because during my first 2 drafts probably of my residency application statement, it was kind of falling flat for me personally. And then I look back at my other statement and I was like, okay, like if this one can be that good, like I can push myself to kind of go beyond what I've already done for my med school application. So it was nice looking at it for that, but nothing more.
Sure.
Okay. I think that's a wrap. We've answered all the questions. Thank you, ladies, so much for your time.
Yes,
Congratulations
Thank you.
on your success. Black Girl Magic and Black Men Magic. You ladies are the future of OBGYN. You ladies are going to, or not even going to, you are inspiration for little girls and medical students who aspire to be like you. So thank you so much for taking time out of your schedules to sit with us, talk to us, drop some knowledge that I'm going to take, even though I am a resident and I'm going to be applying for fellowship. So thank you for inspiring me. Like, I have my notes. So no, like for real. Oh, my scientific journal, but I got
Hey, that's how you know it's real.
so you ladies have inspired me and all of us. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you
so
all.
much for inviting us. Like, I think this is great what you guys are doing. And I mean, I wish I had something like this when I was applying to medical school or even undergrad, honestly. This is great. So I thank you guys very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. Like, this is wonderful. It's amazing. You know, if you guys need anything else, please feel free to reach out. Like, you know, I'm always down to help out in whatever way that I can. You know, if anyone wants my email, you can definitely give that out to anybody who reaches out and wants it.
Awesome. Do you all have anything you want to plug? Any social media? Any kind of initiatives? It's at your discretion.
Really have like social, I have like a Facebook, but you know, people really plug like their Twitters and Instagrams. So I'm not gonna
Hit me up on Facebook.
you know, I'm not trying to make that cool. But like I said, if you want my email, you can, you know, you guys can definitely give it out to whoever you want to give it out to.
You gotta be like, your handle's like, you know, use the at your cervix.
Definitely that at your cervix.
You can, like she already said, you can give out my email. I don't mind. Anyone can like reach out and ask me questions. I mean, I have an Instagram. It's not necessarily medicine focused, but it was on the flyer, right? So
yes, it was.
On the description and all that.
Yeah. So
Get them followers up.
Yeah. And don't, please, people, they're so gracious to give their social media and their emails. Please don't, you know, take advantage and
No stepping sideways, acting all weird.
They've been so gracious, so please respect that as
Absolutely. Well, yeah, thank you all so much. And stay safe.
Okay, good luck.
All right, bye-bye.
You guys too, you know.